go ahead and talk about data folder structures. I like to be very organized because I like to be very efficient. And a lot of times in GIS data and moving data back and forth, it really helps to have a system in place that's ubiquitous across all your projects. So typically what I have is a folder structure as you see here on the screen. It starts with maybe a folder that has a project name, class name, wherever you are at in your career and however you want to kind of structure that outside folder. Inside of that, I have something called GIS data. Now, you can see here at the very top, it has GIS_data, and that is a legacy of, there's still some tools within GIS software, particularly in ArcGIS and other open source ones that do not like spaces in folder names or folder sequences, and so I try to keep them very short, and where I want a space I put an underscore. How I structure it is I have three main folders, one called downloads, one called process data, and one called raw data. Now my downloads is where I go and grab things off the internet. I get the zip files or the original files and I'll put them in there. Once I unzip them, I put the unzipped information in raw data, which, as you can see here, there's a vector folder in raw data, and this is where I put all those unzipped files. Now these are the ones where I have made no changes, and they're just the original raw format. And so if something happens to this, I can always go back to the downloads folder and get my data and just unzip it again without having to go to the internet and track things down or look in my source list of where did I get that, go find it. It may not exist anymore. So I like to archive things this way. Now my students will almost always get data from me, and it'll be located in the raw data folder. Now underneath each of these folders, I have things like 3D models. Now this is where I would put things like city engine files or SketchUp files or things like that I could be using for spatial analysis. Maps are your map container documents, like your ArcMap documents or your QGIS documents. Models are kind of the analytical models. So these are kind of like the flowchart diagrams of things for processing, like it from Model Builder. It could also be certain tools or functions that I've downloaded that I can load into the GIS program. Rasters are, as I talked in the data types, are images or image files. Tables are things like census data tables or other tables that I plan on joining into shape files or geodatabases. Toolboxes are customized tools that other parties might have developed that I've downloaded and I want to use. Haven't really customized them, so again, they can all kind of stay here in this raw data. And then vector. And then in this case, these files are for these series of tutorial videos. I have building outlines, parcels, and street centerline. But a lot of my students will find their data in either this vector folder, the table folder, or the raster folder in the raw data files. Now this process data is the moment I start creating information or editing information or manipulating it and recombining it in new ways. All those files get saved in the appropriate folder under processed data because I have done something to it. And then if I make multiple versions, I will typically throw a date and a version number at the end of the file name. So that way I can kind of keep track of if I run multiple processes and things aren't quite right or I want to compare things, I can go back through time and check things without having to rerun some of these very long and intensive processes. So that's data. Let's move on to the next. Thanks.